going to kind of talk through, right, fees and upsells, being able to find revenue, get that in front of you and present the opportunity, but also doing it in a way that you can automate and not add things and time onto your plate. Then also finding hidden revenue, right, in your operations. And then we'll end with some quick wins. We'll also go into the system a little bit here.
Right. So to start us off on our journey, I got a simple question, or at least it seems simple. What percent of our top line revenue should come from fees? Feel free to answer the questions in the chat and send those over to us. However, spoiler alert, do keep in mind that, there is no one silver bullet for the vacation rental industry, guys, of what percent of your top line revenue should come from fees. It's going to vary wildly based on your market, properties, portfolio, right? We have a 1% in the chat. I'd say that typically for scaled portfolios, what's common, and this is going to vary dramatically by market, going to be somewhere around 50%, right, of top line revenue comes to fees. And that is different than profit, keep in mind, because really and ideally, it's not that we need to take all that home, it's that we need to account for our operating costs with a lot of those line items. And we'll cover that in today's session, how we can use the system to manage that whole process and change it on the fly.
Yeah. And I think one thing here too is obviously this is going to vary by market, but regardless of the market that you're in, you should know and be able to tell what percent of your revenue is coming from fees. So that's something where if you can't answer that today, is it because you don't know how to get that from the system, or is it that you haven't even looked, right? Because those are two options here. So
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of low numbers in the chat. Do keep in mind, everyone, this is like with your clean fees, you're already going to be more than 1%, right? So it's not your profit, it's your revenue, right? So there's a distinction between those two, and we can go into that.
cool. And we'll start talking about some of the fees, right? Like you said, even cleaning fee is something where right away. That's a big chunk that's going into the revenue that you're kind of looking at here. But in term, and yeah, please do take the polls. We are interested in if you do know or can kind of guesstimate what it's coming into, what that looks like here. You're gonna see my mouse move for a second. I'm gonna move the chat down a bit so it's not in front of me. But in terms of fees and kind of starting to think about where they're coming from, number one thing is my thought now that I'm hearing that there's a lot of low numbers in the chat, Jared, is you have to give yourself the opportunity to make revenue. If you're not doing, and we'll give this example of an admin fee or a booking fee, we have seen this, I think, more in the last year than ever come into play. So, one, are you giving yourself the opportunity to put fees and get revenue onto the table here? And then, two, just also know that you can kind of mess around with them, right? Your fee doesn't have to be the same for every single unit. In fact, you might have a booking fee on one unit and you might not have it on another. Or I include, pet fees for this home. It's super, super luxury. And for my studio, I'm going to charge a little bit more for that, or vice versa, right? You can kind of play into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So to that same point, right, for something like a damage waiver, setting a routine cadence, whether you're using a partner for a damage waiver program or you're doing it in-house, it should be the case that you're assessing at the end of booking season or renting season, hey, where did we fall? Like we had this amount in claims and we collected this amount top line. That can either tell you, if that fee might have a little bit of room to increase or decrease, right? To increase conversion. So you have these as levers for your business. If you set up that clean fee, 5 years ago and expect that that damage waiver or clean fee is going to be just as good or just as competitive 5 years from now, we might have a problem because the consumer expectations are changing, what other people are doing in your market is changing, and we have to ride that wave of change with them. So, trip insurance, another thing to look at, guys, if you've started recently adding more direct bookings, it may be a good idea to assess, well, how are we upselling the trip insurance now that we're doing, 25% direct? It might be time to look at that and see what kind of revenue stream we could uncover through building that more into our customer journey with guests. Same with the processing fee and, really thinking about when you make a hiring decision, thinking about if I'm going to bring on a new housekeeping coordinator, for instance, what does this look like? And if I have a portfolio of 100 units, around 3 turns a month, does that 3K month over month increase my revenue enough to bring on this new person to ensure that everything is right with the clean every single time without taking it out of my margin? Right. So being mindful of that as you go to make those types of decisions with the business can really help you if you plan ahead versus bring on a bunch of staff and then, it turns out we didn't plan for that eventuality. Right.
Right. And charging on that too, right? Whether it's a processing fee or it's a markup that you're putting onto a fee. Like you said, you have to evaluate, and your time is worth money. I know that that's like a very like, oh no, duh, thing that you're saying, Emily, but you would be shocked of like, what do you mean that people do a markup on their cleaning fee or that people are doing X, Y, Z? And Jared and I have these conversations every single day. So it's absolutely something to look up if you're maintaining that relationship, you're having those calls, you're doing the coordination. Absolutely, you should be marking up those fees. And again, maybe we do it based on season or we do it based on vendor, owner. There's a ton of options. Point being is it shouldn't sound scary because your software should automate this for you, right? This every single thing on this list should be automated.
Yeah, and we have a good question in the chat. It looks like about where we can find, these fee line items. What are we bringing in, right? So a good report for that is going to be the by fee by vendor report in the system, which should show you visibility for all of that. We'll cover that one on today's webinar if we have time.
Yes.
So cooking requires confident guesswork and improvisation, experimentation, and substitution, dealing with failure and uncertainty in a creative way. So, how does this relate back, Chef Jared, to our chat today about fees? Well, fine dining takes constant tinkering, guys, and so does an effective fee strategy. It's not an insect frozen in amber. It's something that requires that little extra pinch of salt, or maybe a little less pinch of salt, right? To get things exactly how you want them to be. So, oftentimes, not making a choice or a change is still a decision, and sometimes it's the worst decision you can make. So being proactive, not afraid of changing things up, and keeping your head on a swivel will pay dividends in regards to your fee revenues for the business.
Agreed. And I think, gosh, it must have been Rise and Shine last year, but we talked about this with one of our current partners. And it was, hey, even on just two or three of your units, bump up a fee $5. See if it drastically decreases or if you're seeing it the exact same. Now let's go ahead and implement it to the entire inventory, right?
Oh, I know. I've talked to someone and they're like, Jared, we're not using, and they're not the client of our system. This should,
Yeah.
they're like, Jared, we're at 100% occupancy on all our
Oh
units.
God.
We're not using any channels and we couldn't make a dime more money, right? And that's the sort of thing and mentality we want to like speak up against on today's call.
Yes. And again, obviously, Jared and I've worked with over 700 clients. Jared's been in the industry forever. So we have these conversations constantly. We've put together actually like our top upsells that we hear of folks using. I just put a few on this slide, but if you're interested in that entire list, let us know. Just a quick like yes or no, and we'll be sure that we get it out to you. Sorry, or take a picture of the screen, but there's quite a few. This year seems to be the year of luxury. And I say luxury because everybody says luxury to everything now. So there's so many levels to it, but upsells and showing yourself, presenting that you have different options this way is a huge one. So the personal chefs, I'm out in Jupiter, Florida, so like the picnics on a beach right now are huge. We see them with all of our rentals out here. Um, so that rental gear, things like that, again, visibility and being able to even present them as an option are going to be huge.
And remember, guys, this doesn't need to be the same process, and we'll get into this for every guest. If you got a 7 bedroom and you want to only send that message for personal chefs to 5 bedrooms and up, think about that because it may convert better than someone booking a 2 bed, right?
Yeah.
So depending on your portfolio, you all know it best. Build out that process intentionally.
Yes, intentionally. I love that word. I think it's so important. For our next kind of transition here, we're going to talk more about automating this, right? We know that there are fees that you should be putting on the table, but we don't want to put more work on your plate. So, coming in, we're talking a little bit about early check-in, late checkout. How do we fill the calendar and how do we transition that into operations as well? Then we'll look at Happy Stage, which is Streamline's guest app, and then StreamSign Pro. So, how do we get our rental agreements involved? So, number one, if you haven't seen this before, this is our Streamline, our Happy Stays guest app. It's the browser, and then there's an actual downloadable version. But I want to bring this up because this is just one quick example. But within Streamline, and what you should be doing is you should say, okay, Jared is checking in on July 10th, but there's no one at all July 8th or 9th. So maybe I send an email a few days prior, maybe even a week prior, and say, okay, are you sure you don't want to check in a day early? And then maybe I send, do you want to actually just check into the unit early? Or day of, you know what, my flight got in a bit early. I don't want to wait around at the airport or go to a restaurant beforehand. I want to be done traveling. Let's start automating these processes. And so within our system, you can do it obviously any way you'd like, but send that automated email. The guest can click on that link from mobile, right? Because they're traveling, they're out and about, they're on their phone. And this is where it's going to take them. So can they extend right from here? Yes. In my fake world here, I added like a special discount. If they wanted to add a day, you can absolutely do that, or you don't have to. And I think one of the biggest contention points, right, that I hear here is, well, what about housekeeping and maintenance? Like, what do I do during my peak summer season or Christmas? Everybody's out. Like, I don't have enough staff for this piece of it. You do not have to do this year round. In fact, I would not recommend doing this year round if you cannot guarantee that they're coming into a clean home, right? So those are things, again, that your system should be able to automate for you.
To know with July 4th coming up in a couple weeks here that they can switch that off.
Yes.
Yeah. And even if they don't take us up on this, Emily, right? Like what I like about it is they're still going to feel special,
Yes.
guys. We went out of our ways to give them, as our very most special and favorite guest, a discount if they want to stay for us for longer. Even if I'm not able to make it because of my travel plans, I'm going to like that and appreciate that the company went the extra mile to see that I could, extend my stay if I so wish.
Yes. And again, right, we're linking everything together. We're linking reservations, property care, and accounting. So when I say that is the system, when we talk about the automation piece, is going to look at all of our units to see if they're clean before even offering this, right? That's something that you can kind of say, hey, hold off on sending that email until XYZ circumstance happens. To your point, Jared, yeah, they may not take you up on it. Cool, but at least we put it in front of them and it's an option, right? The other thing is, let's say they didn't book from your website. They booked off of a VRBO. They're able to now see your brand in that top left corner. They can see who you are. As we talk a little bit more, as we get kind of further into our presentation, we'll also talk a bit about how that helps with direct bookings and getting that guest loyalty up as well. So before we get out of Happy Stays, one more thing that they're able to do here is you can start creating purchasable amenities. Same deal as before, where we can say we're only going to offer the early check-ins certain times of the year. You can say I'm only going to offer fees or purchasable amenities certain times of the year. We call it period logic, right? Pool heat, let's say in summer, maybe we don't offer it, or maybe we offer it at $80 instead of the $160. So things again to start playing with, but if I'm a guest and I just booked my trip to Orlando, which those Disney tickets are very expensive, I'll tell you guys now that I'm in Florida, I might say, well, at the time of booking, I'm not adding anything extra right now. But I don't know, 2, 3 weeks down the line, I get another email. Are you sure you don't want pool heat? Like it's November. Or did you want to do your beach chair rental so you don't have to go rent and then lug them out? Wherever I am, I have that opportunity here. And Jared, I know another point of visibility obviously is the rental agreement too. So I'll let you kick off there.
Yeah. So for StreamSign Pro, like we touched on earlier, if it is the case where we've started taking a lot more direct booking in our like pizza pie of where our bookings come from, we have more opportunity then to monetize the customer journey and have a think about how we've used to maybe not offer trip insurance. However, now we have the option to, and it makes sense to do it on our direct guests. So you could implement something like that for those guests specifically. Once they add this policy, if you're using Rental Guardian, I know for instance, it's API integrated, meaning that can pass back with the policy details, so it doesn't require a spreadsheet. And if it's something like, we don't have a pool heat example on here, right? But if we did, if it is something where we split that cost with the owner from this document, we can both increase our upsell conversion, right, through something like this, in addition to texting, emailing that guest, and then integrate it to the owner statement. If we're splitting that pool heat with the owner, it can go right from there to their statement, right, seamlessly, and also can alert on the work order property care side that tech to go out there, turn on the pool heat, turn off the pool heat as needed. So, kind of taking a holistic look at that whole process. And A, is it designed to earn you revenue? B, is it designed to give you back some of your time, like Emily said earlier, because your time is valuable, guys.
Awesome. And I know as we go into the demo a little bit later here in the presentation, we can definitely talk about those reservation flags too and like where to find them and set those up, Jared. So that's awesome. Yep.
Yeah, briefly before, as we prime through like the system view of things and kind of looking at how we can use the system to find value from our guests. Let's talk about it briefly. Retargeting feeder markets. When, it comes to shoulder season, guys, and that first snow hits up north, you're going to want to be in those guest inbox saying, hey, folks that come to stay down at the beach from Michigan or what have you, terrible about the snowstorm. The beach is still bright and sunny, right? A simple one that is so simple to set up, yet we see it not set up in a lot of systems is a booking anniversary, simply inviting that guest automatically to come back, including a coupon code even around 60 or 30 days from their stay last year. Marking traits for guests. So this is going to be if they're a golfer or even if they come from a specific feeder market that you want to call out or make a custom feeder market, you can do that with a guest trait and a reservation flag. So if they're a repeat guest, they can receive a different, slightly different confirmation saying, hey, thanks so much for being a loyal guest and choosing us for your beach vacation again. Next time you book with us, here's a coupon, right?
Yep.
So you can build all of that out into your process to do that automatically from the system and also add guest notes and additional guests so that if you have a larger home, you can add Mima, Papa, Aunt Rhonda, the whole family in that guest portal so that then next year they're all getting the email, right, to come back and stay with us again. So it can save you some time on check-in and increase the value of our CRM. So let's
Yes.
dive into the system here. I am going to share my screen.
As you do that, Jared, just talking about the additional guest piece of it, you guys, one quick tip that it really does go a long way is as you get the additional guests, right? Because every lead, every guest of a guest should have a profile in your system. Every primary, right? They go do their review on Airbnb, they go do their review on VRBO, wherever they're coming from. But the additional guests, they all stayed with you. They all had their own individual experience because you have that good data right now living in your system and you know that, please go send them a review. Whether it goes to Google or your site, whatnot, it's a good way for you to, again, just boost visibility across the board.
I actually love that idea. Yeah. So if the primary guest gives us 5 stars glowing review and it was a larger family that did their family vacation there. So this is the market analysis report, everyone, that we could use in the system. You could run it for a certain time of year, like a full year or multiple years, right? To see trends for certain times, like whether it be like March or July, a certain month or time of year versus the full calendar year. So we can see, I might want to look at Indiana and Ohio during their spring breaks, as we have a ton of guests coming down to us from those states in particular. So it might behoove me to pull up the calendar for the school year for the different largest counties out there, right? So I can target those guests and to inform your decision if you are doing like anything with SEO and you're investing in certain areas to bid on keywords, certain keywords, you can make more informed decisions after using the report right here in Streamline. So this is one example. Another good one to look at, everyone, is going to be the loyalty report. I'm going to simply run that. Let's go ahead and look at it for a year going back in time. We'll gauge it at check-in, do not include, $0 bookings. And then I want to look at this total cost on guest history, right? So, wow, this is a quick view into some of my snowbirds. So as season's ending, right, and we notice, all right, time for folks that come and stay with us every winter. We could call these folks that booked last year and booked it for the full, off season. It's probably worth giving them a call to say, hey, any chance we want to come down and stay with us again? We can recognize, like we talked about earlier, that they have stayed with us in the past. It may be worth your time to individually call those folks that made those larger bookings during peak season and to personally invite them back if it's for, the right price at the right time once they're in booking window, reaching back out to them. So that's something to keep in mind. You can use the tools in Streamline to do that in a very targeted way.
Yeah.
Uh, so the flags then tie back into like if it's a repeat booking, if they do want to add some of these different services, right? All that good stuff. So that's a bit about that. Because it was brought up, we also had, someone mentioned the by fee by vendor breakdown report. So let's pull that up as well and take a look into how we can use that report to disambiguate our fee line items. So one way we can use this, we can simply scroll, see, I can even see my tax liability in here for a given time frame, all my different vendors I'm paying out to. To answer the question, we don't count cleans as revenue. You wouldn't if the owner paid the clean to the vendor, right? Then it wouldn't count as revenue. It would still count as revenue if we directly pay that cleaner. So that's the important distinction there. I want to call that out from the question in chat. And then we have our fee breakdowns after vendors. So we can see, are we collecting enough in this specific fee to, let's say, if I want to bring on a new reservations team member, or I can see here we marked up this amount to cover a cost from a certain channel. And then I could look at that invoice to compare, hey, am I in the black or not? So that I can, at a routine basis, confirm that what we are collecting in that fee covers our costs, and then a little bit of a cushion potentially, or exactly that it covers our cost at least, right? Unless it's a loss leader, which is a whole other topic for a different day. But you can build out these fees to be as specific, for different cleans, different markets, all that good stuff. So you guys can customize and have control over how this might look for your business so that at a glance, you know exactly which one maps to which operating cost and can quickly confirm that you are, in the green or black in that regard. Under our operations tab for this, I like to highlight it as reevaluate operations is the key thing, meaning that, this is not something where the process for how we send confirmations or rental agreements or, deal with guests from any given particular channel differently is something that should stay in a stasis, guys. This is something at the end of season we can collect, the feedback from our team. What are you spending your time doing that you really feel like could be better on spent elsewhere, right? And then take all that feedback and make things better. Another option for margin erosion we see is that, you wouldn't believe this, everyone. However, owners, don't tend to remind me of stuff I forget to bill them for. So if you can have the very best system for managing cleans and operating work orders and all that, and the very best software and finance back end, if the two aren't designed to connect to each other, that can create the opportunity for failure, right? Wherein things get fall by the wayside, that owner doesn't get billed. I would be willing to bet they're not going to remind us to bill them, and that's margin erosion. So tightening up that process at the end of season is another thing we can look at once the summer craziness dies down, potentially for your market. And we have, marking up work orders. So this is something that there's a couple different ways, right? One of them is to mark that up for a profit. Emily, there's also a value to not charging for work orders and sending it to an owner's statement, is there not?
100%. One of my favorite things that I usually share up from the customer service side and operational side for us is in Owner X within Streamline, right? So the owner app at this point, what you're able to do is one, yes, if you are doing work and you are, scheduling vendors, absolutely mark up your work orders. But two, if you're going in and doing like an inspection on a home, something that's more routine, you're already in there, and you go and I make fun of Jared for this because he had a one of his bunk beds that we saw the picture of and quick, right? Just need to change the screws. Something easy you're able to do while you're in there. You should absolutely be telling your owner that you did that, right? We should be
Hmm.
marking that as no charge. Still put it as a work order. You absolutely went in there and you did work. We're not going to charge it for you. So people love to see that. It's also from a relationship perspective, something that you can lean into kind of during
Yeah.
ongoing conversations.
And then you're building that goodwill, right,
Yep.
Emily? When you credit them for the little thing, the little thing, the little thing is a $0 line item. For that, when we do have to bill them for that, issue or renovation project or replacement of some furniture in that unit, we've built that goodwill, guys, with our $0 line items. They know that we're not billing them to bill them, and it might be a little bit more palatable to their owner palate, right, for our dish.
Yeah.
So that's something to look at. And one thing I will say about if it's unpalatable always to this owner, maybe it's not an us thing. So one thing we're going to cover about how we can reevaluate our operational expenses is reevaluate how our staff's time is being spent with all the different owners in our portfolio. And this is a good exercise to do with the team at the end of busy season, and it will really give you some peace of mind, help you all feel a little bit more sane. And if you're a business leader, let's jump to the next slide on the pivot grid. If you're a business leader, it will give you the information where you can say, really, they call you every day? Emily, we're saying that this one owner that their unit earns the least of all of them, they call us every day. Is that what I'm hearing? So that might be news to you, like that they're that persnickety, or that they made one of our team members cry, or that, they everything's a problem and every rate's a problem, or something like my mother said, people with problems are problem people. So if they're taking up the most time and bringing in the least revenue, you can consider that they may not be a fit for your ideal owner profile, right? Who is our ideal customer, and defining who that is and who that is not. So this is an exercise you can go through with the team of creating a pivot grid just like this, of time going up there and then money going to the right side of the screen. So, if their property brings in 4 times the usual in their portfolio, we can keep up with a bit more calls from them potentially. However, if they're on the other side where there's a ton of time being spent and not a whole lot to show for it because they stayed in their vacation property or short-term rental for the highest peak season dates, right? That might be something to
Yep.
look at. And your staff will appreciate it if you go through this with them. I guarantee it. At
I
the end of
agree.
portfolio. Yeah.
We have a partner and same deal, right? They have, and I think everybody's had one of these at one point, but when, the name pops up on the phone and the whole office goes like, ah, and like there's the
Yes.
collective like, oh no, that goes on. Again, right, if it's not necessarily high yielding, your team morale is huge to every aspect of your business. And I
Yeah.
cannot say that enough. So if it is time to, right, let an owner go, or maybe just have a difficult conversation with them, you need
Yeah,
to,
or make your team feel heard. It doesn't have to be that they're absolutely can't work. We can't work with them. It
right.
could just be recalibrating those expectations. Either with our staff or with the homeowner. Yep.
Kind of ending it off, we've talked about quite a few quick tips, but things that you're able to like implement today if you wanted to before we go into questions. And I saw the chat bump in Jared, so I'm gonna let you start looking at those, but please do like take a look at your reservations from last year, the year before. Even if you're not going to pick 20, pick five. Smile and dial, right? Split them out between the team. Even if you get one reservation out of it, worth it, right? 100% worth it. Requesting reviews from your owners, just like we said with additional guests, right? Every review, every Google review helps. When owners are going through and they're like, who do I want to work with? A lot of the first things they're going to do is go Google property managers near me. And so Requesting reviews from your owners is a huge plus. Now, caveat to this, don't ask everybody all at once, please. Like all of a sudden in July, you're getting like 30 new five-star owner reviews. No, we want it to be natural, but as we're having these conversations, right? Because you should be speaking with your owners every few months, maybe every quarter or so, just ask. It really can't hurt.
Yeah.
Thing they say
I
no.
would send the survey out first,
Yep.
and
True.
then and
True.
then once you've confirmed who are happy people, get them in front of it. So you can plan and
Yes.
sequence that out for an internal like survey and then a review, guys, is
Yep.
one way to do it. And there's a way of doing that for guest reviews as well. The email I used to do is a simple 5-star across the screen. If that guest were to select, a 3-star or 2-star, it's taking them to an internal page to give us feedback to be better, right? If they select 4 or 5, then it could go to my Google page. So with a very rudimentary knowledge of HTML and linking different things based on the image they select, you can create a smarter process that is going to, get the happy people where they need to go and get the people that need something solved or offer, constructive feedback and how we can be better, a place for them to go as well. So being
Great
intentional
point.
with that reviews process for owners, for guests is a great way to find the money for the business and get, the most stellar reviews that you can out of your guests and owners.
Yes. And then last quick tip here is we looked at happy stays kind of towards the beginning of the presentation. And I like to mention this because a lot of our partners, yes, you guys are in vacation rental world, short-term management. A lot of our partners also buy and sell real estate, right? Or they have partners that do that, or they do the long-term side. That's also something that you can highlight in happy stays, or honestly, even in your marketing emails. Did you have a great stay? Think about living, right? I'm not that creative. People get really, really pretty with it, but absolutely should be adding all of those to happy stays into your outward messaging to your guests too.
Yeah, buy your own piece of paradise is what I'd say, right? And
Love
put
that.
that with a link to like the real estate arm or partners that you work with, right? You always tell someone, well, it costs this to buy one of these places, but it brings in that,
Yes.
and then they're like, okay, let's talk. So keying up that conversation is a great way to get word of mouth, or even if it's not them, their friend potentially that may be looking to
Yep.
buy in this space. So I love that point, Emily. That's definitely something that everyone could be doing that wants to grow their business.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think we can lead into some questions.
Yes. So first, I see here a couple folks. It looks like uh, Sabrina saw for Extra. So if you go into your company variables settings, guys, as she said there, and you want the loyalty report as well, you'll be able to, if you'd go into company variables, this is one you can switch on in your system.
Yep.
So it's simply overwhelming to turn on all the reports, and certain are mutually exclusive. It's either this or that. However, you have the tools to enable that right now in your system under that company variable setting. So that's where you would go to get that added if you don't see it in your system right now. So
Yes.
that would be for Tracy and Charla that both asked about that. Do we have any other questions on that or accessing any of the details we brought up today or anything like that from the group? Feel free to put it in chat if you do.
And I think I saw, Margie, I think I saw the availability filler question earlier too on how do you even get early check-in, late checkout set up?
Mm,
It's a tag within the system. We have a full like knowledge base article on how to set it up and the exact tag, but look up availability filler specifically, and there's going to be a document that you create if we only want it to go out to direct or we only want it to go out to, I don't know, VRBO, things that the ones that we are merchant of record on, just like a normal document, you'll pick the reservation type, you'll pick the tags, and again, make it as pretty as you want there. But that's how you'll get that set up.
yes, and there may even be a template of that. If not, we can send you, like one of our team members can send you the
Yep.
HTML of like that availability filler. I believe like the template would be an email, but you could text it to someone as well. So we can share out that HTML so you don't have to reinvent the wheel after our call as well.
Awesome. And then Dominique asked, is there a way to offer trip insurance via StreamSign Pro, excluding VRBO? Absolutely. when you create that, just same deal. When you go to those reservation types, unselect VRBO in there or Airbnb,
Mhm.
whichever ones we want to. Trying to go quick so we can hit all the questions, but I also saw, David, the purchasable amenity question on there too of can you only offer those in happy stays? And the answer is you can offer it also on your website. You can offer it in StreamSign Pro. So there's definitely multiple areas you can and should be
Yeah.
presenting.
And you can remind the guest to like just
Yes.
simply email or text reminder, hey, on your guest app slash portal, guys, if you'd like to add the pool heat, like for example, it's November. Everyone wants pool heat. They just don't. The ones that don't say they want it just show up expecting it to be there and blame you when
True.
it's not there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, right? That's the world we live in. So rather than have those 4 or 5 guests in the off season and show up expecting pool heat that isn't there, text them. All the guests that are arriving within that time frame, you can give an additional reminder when they most want that purchasable amenity. Just say, "Are you really sure you want a cold pool this Christmas?" And you can automatically remind them so that when they come back to you and say, Emily, I didn't know about the pool heat and it's cold and I'm unhappy. We can then say, I'm so sorry that that pool isn't heated. We texted you a week before because it's really important to us that we do heat it for folks that need that. So that's why we text it, right? But we can get someone out there potentially if you're nice. So,
You're nice. Love
that's how
that.
you can avoid that whole conversation and protect yourselves from that negative feedback to show that we did put in the work. Our process did take care of them. They simply didn't get back to us.
Yes. Love that. And again, this is all things that we're not having you do this manually, you guys. This is something that should be an automated process where you're hands off, but the guest is seeing more value from, or your owners are seeing more value from these things. I did see, Charla, you had asked as well about additional guests and like, how do we even get their information? First thing is definitely ask, right? The primary. So when you send out your rental agreement, there's a tag where if, I don't know, they went on VRBO and they selected 6 guests, like that's something that you can see come into the Streamline system. In your rental agreement, you can have a required space, or maybe we don't require it. Like for me, I'm not putting in all of my friends' email that are staying with me, but I might give you one or two. But absolutely a tag. Now, in other areas, right, where maybe you're in a complex where I don't know the gate agent is super strict and they need to have every single person's name on that list, then let's require it. Like, I don't want you guys to
Mhm.
have issues later. I need to pass this list off to the agent so that you have a smooth check-in. Those are the ways that you're going to be able to start capturing the additional guests.
And you could set like a reminder rule for only units over a certain bedroom count. Another way of looking at
True.
it to say, hey, you booked a 7 bed, beachfront home. Here's a text reminder a week before your stay to say, hey, would you like to add the other folks staying at the property as additional guests so they don't call you for the checkout instruction
Yes.
or check-in instructions, primary guests, right? That way we can show it or convey it as a service to that guest, right? Even though it is adding to our seat, it's a service to us. It also can give them a better guest experience because then Aunt Rhonda's not calling at 4 p.m. because she never got the check-in instructions. So we
Yep.
can get ahead of that. And then I'm seeing from Joachim, he wasn't able to make the beginning. I believe we share the recordings of these out with folks that registered. So he should be receiving that after the call.
Yes, all the webinars are going to be recorded and then they're also placed on our YouTube page. So if you want to
Oh,
go
okay.
and see like even ones from the beginning of the year, I know Jared, you've done a few already this year too. I absolutely recommend go on the YouTube page, go on the blogs that Streamline's putting out. There's a lot of good resources out there for that.
Let's see. Additional guest, Charla. Is there a way to automate it? Guests automatically add the guests they want to add. You would prompt them to do that on the units, Charla, where you want to. You could
Yep.
send a communication where, hey, would you like to add the additional guests? And then a link to their guest app. And then they're able to do it from there without
Yeah.
taking up your time to do so.